Stream. All right, go ahead. If we have any problems, I'll let you know.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Well, welcome to our meeting. It's the Communities in Bloom meeting of Thursday, April 21st, 2022. We'll get right into the meeting here. Under presentations, we don't have any. But under the discussion items, we have the Barrie Adventure Recreational Trail. Mona, did you want to speak just briefly what Jason was indicating on that?
Okay, so I thought we were going to defer that.
Okay, well, that's what we were talking about that earlier. I just want to make sure. Okay, so we're going to defer that item
till next meeting.
Until the next meeting. 2.2 is South Shore Center digital sign. And I don't know, Mona or Adriana, if you wanted to speak to that.
Adriana, did you want to speak to it, or do you want me to?
Yeah, it's been the Garden of the Year 2022 is now on the digital sign. Looks really nice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's better than saying washroom schedule. I don't know if that's still there, but
yeah. I would hope it is. It is essential services.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I spoke to Gordon, thanked him for that, and he's going to run it through the duration of the summer. So
nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that was that item.
Mm-hmm.
Good. 2.3 is pollinate berry green space planting. And I wasn't sure who was going to speak to that. Is that part of what, Stephanie, you're going to be involved in?
Yes, I would love to share a presentation, just a quick 5-minute presentation. Would that be okay?
Sure, that'd be fine. That'd be great.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so I'm just going to get this loaded up. So just hang on 1 second here.
Okay.
Hey, Steph, do you mind just introducing yourself, just doing a little bit of a bio on yourself?
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Is it sharing? Okay, great.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. So hi, I'm just trying to get this. Hold on for 1 more second here. Oh, there we go. My name's Stephanie Weidman, and I'm the Parks Program Coordinator with the City of Barrie's Development Services Department and the Parks Planning Section. And I just wanted to say thank you very much for the invitation today to come and talk to you all. And I just gotta switch this up here so that I can see it a little better. I've just got my speaker notes here that I'm trying to get out here. There we go. So I just wanted to, here's a little outline of what I wanted to talk to you about today. A bit of background about myself and what I do here, B-City Barrie, and some of the initiatives that we're involved with, and then how we can tie that all into the Year of the Garden.
Right.
So this is me out last summer with the at Lampman Lane, where we were doing the community gardens. I've been in with the City of Barrie for 4 years now, and I completed the horticulture program at Guelph in 2003, and I worked in both municipalities and the private industry relating to the ornamental, environmental, and production horticulture ever since. And I'm passionate about plants and about people, and especially combining them together. And I really like getting people outside to experience the outdoors and gardening and just anything to do with nature.
Excellent.
So of course we know Barrie's B-City, and you guys are really aware of that because when the motion was adopted to become one, it was Communities in Bloom that coordinated and the designation ceremony, along with all of the other activities that went on during Communities in Bloom that year. So that was 2019, and there we all are. And it was a great day. I remember this day. It was really exciting, and it was a really great to see all the work that Communities in Bloom does. And that was my first real experience understanding what you do and how involved you are in our outdoor spaces. And then of course, everything changed with COVID. And shortly after, we had a good year before COVID hit. But as I was getting into this role, we still found ways to incorporate the 3 pillars of Bee City Berry. So that is protecting and creating pollinator habitats. So we did that through the community gardens and some plantings at Hyde Park and Sunnydale and the Berry Sports Complex. And then we provide community education. And we did that through webinars and Building Berry. We did it together at home. You know, we had like little workshops, videos, and different activities that were all online at the time. And then we celebrated our pollinators by doing through those activities. But our big one was the Pick a Pollinator contest that is now getting recognized nationally as an example of what Bee Cities can do with online activities and celebration of Bee City.
Excellent.
And so, sorry, I'll just keep going, but if you have any questions,
Yep.
I can answer them at the end, or if
Yep.
you want.
Probably.
That's fine.
Okay, I got a few more slides, so I'll just go through them. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the upcoming projects that we have in the realm of like environmental outreach. So these are some of the things that I'm working on with some of the groups, our community groups. We're hoping to do Pollinator Week at Open Air Dunlop this year, now that everything's opening up and people are getting out in downtown. And I'm going to continue the Pollinator Pick a Pollinator contest, and then doing some native plant walks at Sunnydale Park, which I think is a really great way to showcase a lot of the different collections that we have there, and continuing work with Hyde Park, with the Rotary, and doing some other, you know, and this is a great with Pollinate Berry coming together, which is a new community group with interested people who are interested in pollinators. And they are interested in helping support native plantings and other habitat creation. And so I'm really looking forward to continuing to build these relationships.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and also to the urban foodscapes is something that is part of what I like to work on and get to do. So the community gardens, through COVID last year, we were able to build 3 of them at Bateau, Lantman, and Riverwood. So that's the first year for all of them to be online this year. And we really focused, you know, with the seed boxes that the Berry Urban Gardeners spearheaded, and getting some programming and, you know, getting people aware of what they are. And I've been working with the Berry Public Library and Bass Lake Farms with that. And then we're also doing something that you may be interested in. Urban Pantry is hosting a garden party at Lantman Lane on May 14th. And it's to actually celebrate all the volunteers and all the work that they have done. And so there's going to be a lot of other groups promoting various activities there. So that's something very exciting. And then also we have these community orchards and other edible landscapes that we're doing work and research towards. And these are through many of the partnerships that, again, that were on the previous page and this one as well. So there's a lot of really great things going on in our community. And then this is something new that through Parks Planning that we're offering is some nature-based programming in our parks. So when we built the Lantman Lane Community Gardens, and of course Mona was, and her team and operations was a big part of getting all the planning together to install teaching gardens that for Andrew Hunter to use, but it is kind of connected with the community gardens. So they're getting ready to start to kick that off, and hoping to do some other programming there with a plot. So using that with our recreation department and the day camps to get kids out into the garden, that they would actually be there during the camp, and they would incorporate that into the programming, and also hopefully some demonstrations and lessons. And then hopefully getting out and doing a bunch of pop-ups in various parks this year to promote education and getting outdoors and doing activities So I've been working with the conservation authorities and Barrie Transit to do some of these sort of things that are up and coming. So I want to just dive into now this really great Year of the Garden that was proclaimed by the Canadian Garden Council to 100 years of ornamental horticulture in Canada. And so they've really highlighted these different ways of how we can celebrate gardens with these celebration gardens. So the aim is to inspire Canadians about the many health and well-being and economic and environmental benefits that gardens and gardening provide. And they want to help promote gardening success and enjoyment of gardens. So here in Barrie, we do live the garden life, and there are many opportunities to get involved. And so I just wanted to highlight a couple of these celebration gardenings that fit in the environmental side. So this climate action celebration garden is focused on making positive impacts in the environment and how we can support the fight against climate change. So this is just another way to register your garden into this program. There's also the edible garden, celebration garden. When I was doing my research about the Year of the Garden, they have garden ambassadors, and one of them is Stephen Biggs, who is Food Garden Life and the Art of Green Living. And I actually registered a garden already through this. I wanted to see what it's like, and so I registered the demo plot that is at Lampman Lane that we'll be using this summer. And so it was just it really felt good to kind of be able to do that, and that there was an avenue to promote edible gardens. And the interesting thing with this one is that they want to do a legacy for the Year of the Garden 2020 to create the conditions and the opportunities to have a garden at every school in Canada by 2025. So they have a few objectives there, and it just seemed to tie in so nicely to what we have at Lampman Lane. And then the other one I wanted to highlight was the Native Plant Celebration Garden. I feel like, this is a great way to get people who may, have different styles of gardens that they want to promote or, celebrate. And that by having a Native Plant Celebration Garden, we can utilize and leverage groups who are already doing this kind of planting, and everyone can feel included. And then lastly, we have there's a Native Plant of the Year, and they are recognizing both varietals and ornamental cultivars of the little blue stem. But I really think that this is a very symbolic bridge between the ornamental and the environmental, and how, together, we can grow stronger. So I just wanted to say thank you again for having me here today, and I would love to answer any questions that you have for me.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
That's great.
Yes, absolutely.
Super
Okay.
presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? I noticed you mentioned it with regards to the urban pantry on Lampman Lane on May 14th. That's a celebration of some you mentioned?
Yes, Urban Pantry is they're basically celebrating and giving a thanks to all the volunteers in the community who have helped build the gardens and do various other activities over the past couple of years when it's been very difficult to do so. And so we're looking. It's Urban Pantry's hosting, and we're helping to facilitate the activities there, but there's going to be some various groups involved. I think there's like a seedling giveaway, some activities, but I think there's going to be quite a few vendors, but I think the Urban Pantry on their Facebook page, I could certainly share that information with you.
Okay, yeah, that's all I was wondering in terms of the timing through the day, that kind of thing.
It's 11 to 3 on the Saturday, May 14th.
11 to 3, okay. Okay. Anybody else can jump in there with questions if you have any there. I'm just reading my note, quickly looking at my notes here.
I have one, Carl.
Yep.
Anne Marie.
Go ahead, sure, yep.
And so I get to live in the beautiful worlds of Mona and Stephanie with Communities in Bloom and horticulture. And last year, and so I usually cross over with Stephanie with some of the work I'm doing with the Janice Lake and Garden that you've all been to, and some of the donations. So when Stephanie, you were talking a bit about the kind of edible gardens, last year, Communities in Bloom and through your team, Mona, we did that harvest of kale in a public space. Is that happening again? Is that kind of a spotlight that would dovetail into some of this work where there's kind of this complementary approach, or would we register that space if we did kale again there as an area that is being recognized now differently, or as a particular edible garden in Communities in Bloom?
Yeah, for sure. And it's a great opportunity in that this year because of the, the judges are actually coming to visit us this year. Yeah,
That was
so it
amazing.
should be good.
I had a question, and maybe it's because I've been approached by residents on an opportunity, and it's kind of timely because it crosses over into Communities in Bloom with public space, in addition to, I think, planting native species. So I'm wondering if this is I'll throw it out there and see if it's an option that meets both. So tall trees in Ward 3, I believe, received a kind of a silver medal or an award of distinction through Communities in Bloom a couple years ago, if that's right, Mona?
That would be the under the forestry program that they completed.
2019. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got some avid gardeners who are part of Pollinate Berry and who are interested in actually looking at, can we complement tall trees with some of the signage we have there? And instead of doing their own garden, they actually want to see how they can facilitate planting in their neighborhood, which would be in the Springdale area, and actually planting native species by the tall tree sign, kind of at the entrance of that space. So I didn't know if we would hypothetically kind of meet both opportunities where that could be something where we do I just made quick notes, the native focus, the native planting, native species focus that Stephanie, you spoke about, and if we could register that space as a Community in Bloom's area.
Yeah, sure. We're looking for projects in that this year, and that they're, to celebrate Year of the Garden anyway. So certainly that would be something that, we go back, as the committee there is to, decide, what projects in that we can showcase. And there's other, avenues in that to showcase. If we can't physically visit somewhere, one of our sites, then we can certainly have it in our profile book.
So how do we, and I guess maybe this gets to my main question, which is, if residents see an opportunity to improve a space through planting that aligns to kind of the Year of the Garden, but it's not on their property, do they still go through the Communities in Bloom registration, or do we need a different permission for them to go ahead and identify what they're going to do on city property? So tall trees being that example. Do you know what I mean?
That would be something that I would definitely take back to our supervisor and our manager of Parks and Forestry.
Okay.
Even if they came through Communities in Bloom, we would still need approval if it's something to do with the city properties themselves. I'm just thinking, like, even the Boulevard Gardens, that was, well, Communities in Bloom was heavily involved in that. It was still a city property that had to be approved by the city for use.
Right, but it's an active program, my understanding, where residents can, with no charge, just identify that they are doing some intentional planting. But the boulevards are kind of an available area for residents, and residents are encouraged to kind of take over that space. I just didn't know when we're looking outside of that. So if that's kind of an area of a park space, should we go through you then, Mona, if we can see opportunities and tuck it under kind of a award initiative or beautification project?
I'm sure. Let's discuss, Anne-Marie, and along with Steph here, and and then I'll just take it back, like, to to our supervisor and manager, just so that hey, everyone's in the same loop.
Awesome.
Yeah.
so that's fantastic, because I know I've got residents kind of going, what can we do in activating spaces? And it's not necessarily their property. So that's helpful. And then my second question is, knowing that there are those themes that Stephanie, you highlighted in your presentation, how do we, as a committee, do we have an approach to encourage that? Or when individuals are coming with that registration form to sign up, are we pointing them in the direction to say, you know, here's an example of how you could make your garden edible, or you could also register it, or here's an example of native species we want you to consider. Is that all there and ready to go on the website and it's easy to find? Or should we be looking at how to connect individuals that want to register their garden with some of the pieces that Stephanie is active in with the Barrie as a bee city and some of the urban agricultural work? Are we well connected from individuals would get that information anyways when they register? Or do we kind of help to promote to say, here's a theme we'd want you to consider if you're doing some new planting?
Yeah.
I certainly am like, I would love to be able to promote communities and blooms on like the BCD webpage, if that's somewhere that you would think that would be helpful. But I'm obviously here to help in any way to help promote the Year of the Garden, because it's just pretty special.
Mhm.
It would seem like we would want to be intertwined, certainly with regards to the climate and the edible portion and the native plants and stuff. Because you mentioned, Stephanie, that they, at the moment, they're registering with those different groups.
Well, I haven't been directly talking with every group promoting communities in bloom in the Year of the Garden yet. But certainly, you know, when I do talk with people, I'll mention that, you know, that they should check out communities in bloom for this year, and just start those conversations rolling. But of course, you know, I wanted to make sure that, you know, it was in line with what your objectives were for this year, and the vision was, you know, I didn't want to stray too far, but, you know, I certainly, anything that you wish me to share with groups, I'd love to be able to do that.
Well, I have one question too. How are we going to communicate to just the general public that the different events are happening? Does that show up like in the advance on the once a week, or how do people find out about some of these things? Like you've got your climate action celebration garden. Can we advertise that someplace, or?
Yeah, this is all on the website for Year of the Garden.
Sorry to interrupt. Can it also be in the paper rather?
Oh yeah, whatever. I know with communications plans that you would have all that, you know, laid out in terms of where, you know, how we strategically promote, you know, these sort of things. But this is very accessible on the website, that anyone who can go online can check out. That the Year of the Garden has these different celebration gardens, and that if essentially you click on each of those slides that I showed you with the Year of the Garden, they have their own kind of spot where that if you scroll to the very bottom of the page, it says submit a photo, and then they take that photo and then they populate it on a map. So the more photos and entries that people put, the more little dots are put on the map. So
That's good.
yeah, yeah. And then you get to print out, but so that is for Year of the Garden. And it'd be interesting to see how communities in bloom can tie that in, or how they work together. That part I'm not too sure about, but they are communities in bloom is a leading partner in with the Canadian Garden Council, and so I'm not sure exactly how those are connected, but I'm sure there's a way to connect them, if not.
Yeah, Mona, and any of the information that we've got so far this year from Communities in Bloom, is there any sort of information like this coming forward in a presentation form or just mentioned in the applications this year or anything like that?
So for us, it's thus far in that there is that, it's up to us like to present, what our initiatives and that are for Year of the Garden, which is, it's great to have Steph and that here, to, pull in some of their initiatives and also, we're waiting to hear back from the Garden Council and that I know that they've asked to do believe that they selected 6 municipalities and we're one of them. The Garden Council did, and they're going to do this article, actually a magazine in that. So they did ask for us to be included in there.
Nice. Yeah.
Okay.
That's great.
And is this an article coming out like early, or is it one that would be sort of a wrap up kind of a thing? Do you know?
I believe it probably be maybe end of July, first part of August.
Okay.
Oh. Dorothy, I was going to say you're on mute. So if you want to talk.
Yeah.
At all.
Trying to find the button to push.
Yeah, no, Andrea, you're on mine, you're still showing as muted too.
Oh yeah,
but-
you're mute too.
but-
Yeah, no, we can't hear you. Yeah, push your mute button.
You gotta read lips. She said she's not talking.
I'm not talking.
Okay. Now I understand. Okay, thank you.
So when I look at the website quickly and I find, lost my page there, just to run the segue between the both, would there be a benefit of a relationship, a more formal relationship between the two? So if I look at Communities in Bloom, it's kind of nested under the heading beautification. And then I find under conservation and sustainability, kind of a separate page over, there's the Bee City. So I didn't know if there's a benefit to speaking with communications about creating a link or an icon on both those pages for movement back and forth that might be a bit more intuitive around, while you're thinking about, Pollinator Week 2022, and there's some great information about making your garden more pollinator friendly, and or, perhaps some content there that echoes what you presented, Stephanie, about like, here's some ideas of the garden, here's where to register your gardens. Could there be an icon on that level that also says, don't forget to register for Communities in Bloom, and then moving people back and forth between those sites so they're not kind of siloed, but residents could see a relationship between the two. I'm wondering if that would be of benefit.
That'd be a benefit. That would be something, Mona, I guess you would meet with communications, or how, like, I don't know the internal workings of the city.
Yeah, I actually have a meeting coming up with Melanie early next week, actually. So that's something, I'll chat with her and then maybe with Nick and see if we can, pull some of those initiatives, just to have, a rolling, list of what's happening.
I love that idea. I think it's great too. And I certainly definitely can put something on the Bee City page that would direct people to Communities in Bloom. So I'll work with you and your team, Mona, on that one for sure.
That would be
Thanks,
great.
Jen.
I know sometimes we look at leveraging like the Barrie Urban Gardeners Facebook page, and now there's a new Pollinator Barrie and they've got their community Facebook page. So it'd be great if we're pushing things out, if they take residents not to do 2 different postings for both Communities in Bloom, and perhaps, what's the, what do we want to see residents get engaged on that supports pollinators, but that there's some way in which they can get one link and kind of access to all the information. My other question was, and maybe this is off topic, but I also didn't know if we were going to update some of the information and then include examples of the gardens Stephanie spoke to as things to consider when you're registering for Communities in Bloom. Is that something that's being updated soon? Because I know it's 2021, and I didn't know if we're using the 2021 registration form for Friday's event.
So we do have, we're going to be using the exact same registration form. And with COVID and that there, everything kind of took a bit of a, lay low. And we're moving forward this year. So certainly, like all those initiatives and the Communities in Bloom mandate, and that will be showcased. It needs to be bumped up and stuff. And so there will be an opportunity to maybe showcase some of, the pictures and like you said, little icons and that there of what's new.
That's great. So we can
What's new,
start
what's
pushing.
happening.
Yeah, we can start pushing registration now then with the 2022 garden, or do you want us to hold off a little bit for the online form?
Let me talk to Melanie first.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that sounds good.
But for the event coming up on
Yeah.
Friday and Saturday, we would just be going with the forms, and then whoever's sort of handing those forms out and stuff, I guess should be indicating like some of the stuff that Stephanie's involved in here too, just so that they can go to the city website and say, look at this and this and this, and then that way they can, I'm thinking some of the people that might be coming may not have heard of any of these other activities and might find it very interesting to be able to latch onto something like that too. So I'm thinking when we do this Friday and Saturday sign up and stuff, maybe the person that's working that particular event can mention it to the people that there are these other activities, because I'm assuming our 2021 forms don't mention anything about these new programs that are coming up.
Should we talk about that like before we end today on a later part of the agenda, which is just kind of promotion and where we want to send people to register?
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
We could do an addendum or whatever. I don't know how they do it from the business standpoint, but yeah, I would think we would need to narrow it, or sorry, get it determined what it is we want to be doing on particularly this weekend coming up with regards to people coming in and registering.
My communications they've put together a postcard in that for distribution, and of course, and then we'll have the registration forms there as well.
Oh,
Right.
that's great.
Oh,
Okay.
all right.
And then lastly, just around when we talk about the native species and native plantings, the other area I didn't know that segues nicely to kind of promoting, what we can do through Communities in Bloom, but have alignment to the Barrie as a Bee City, specific to the Boulevard program that also sits under beautification, but it lists all these plants. And I didn't know if we should be like, that's a great resource that might also be another nice communication link. And I didn't know, Stephanie, if those ones listed under the suggested plantings, because they go under the common and Latin names for those for sun and for shade. And I know residents have gone there when they're planning out their boulevards. Are those all native species? Can we comment on that? Or are these just different plants, native, non-native? And is there a way to identify that for residents that are looking at taking a particular approach to gardening?
Yeah, I feel that it needs a revamp. Certainly there could be, when that list was put together, the main concern is height. You don't want to have any trees, shrubs, or anything that, with sightline. So that's a big guide, determining factor in what was selected. Right now, there's a mix of native and ornamental. I still think there is a okay to have a mix, but I certainly think, it depends on the person, and, it's really up to the individual or the group who's taking on the initiative to do a boulevard garden to what they'd want to plant. And it's to help guide. So I think there's room for both, but I definitely I agree it should be updated. I think there might be a couple that could be removed and added and identified as these are ornamental, these support pollinators, these are native plants, things like that would be helpful, I think. So
yeah, any icon even that said N for native or B for like a super pollinator type of food source would be I think amazing. I know those are questions I'm getting quite a bit, but might help to make informed decisions if know, I'm often going through and saying, well, I don't even know what these look like from a height or from a beautification approach around color. But if I wanted to purposefully pick native, how do we make it easier? If I want to pick different color assortments or know that I'm picking groupings for pollinators that align to some of the city programming, then how do I make sure I'm planting what I want to then communicate that I've done as part of the Communities in Bloom program if I'm picking a theme?
Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you for that. And I'll definitely take that away with me.
Okay, is it, Stephanie, is it your group? I'm a little confused as far as who does what in the city, but was it your group that would have come up with that list initially for the plants to be identified, or?
I believe it's before my time when it was put together, but I believe it would have been, oh, can't remember if it was, I could ask the person who's just on the other, who's in the cubicle beside me, because I believe she put the list together.
Is
But
this
I
Wendy?
just can't, yes, but I can't remember at the time what group that would have been. So,
Yeah, because I realized the city's reorganized a number of times probably since then, so. Okay,
Yeah, there's great resources on the website across the three. But I guess overall, when I think about the communication, if that list is going to stay or get refreshed, it'd be great to kind of be able to easily navigate for residents between, you know, the resource there under Boulevard Gardens around listing of plant types to register your garden with Communities in Bloom, and then to strategically, how does it align to the city's intentional programming? Lots of good stuff going on. It's amazing.
so Mona, you'd mentioned that you would be meeting with the communications department sometime next week. That if that can be raised as a bit of an idea, if they can be interlinked, much easier, so that this, like, basically the citizenry can just go on, say Communities in Bloom, and then there would be a link there for them to go to somewhere else, or at least a notification, little note saying, if you go to urban gardening, or if you go to this, you can find out more information about this kind of.
Yeah, and vice versa, I think, you know,
Yeah.
with the, you know, with the different organizations as well, you know, they can, you know, help us, you know, with the Communities in Bloom, you know, by ensuring that our name's out on their list as well.
Mhm.
Okay, and then you would be meeting with Melanie then on that.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
I don't have the date. I know that we have, I think it's might be May 3rd or something like that, but it's not too far away.
right, okay. All right, so does anybody else have any other questions or thing they want to mention before we move on to 2.4?
No, I think it's helpful. I mean, I guess I'll just speak at a resident level. Like I'm happy to push different ideas as we push out, you know, register for Communities in Bloom. Love to see if I can give examples or push out different ways in which residents can activate their boulevards and activate a certain approach to gardening.
Right. Okay. Well, we can move onwards then to item 2.4, the bus stop rooftop gardens. And I wasn't sure who was going to be speaking to that topic. I know that Adriana, you had brought that up, and that Mona, you were involved, and I wasn't sure where we had taken it from there.
I can share that I found where it was discussed prior, and I can send the link out.
That
So
would be good.
I think Brandy was able to put this on the agenda for July 6th at the Active Transportation and Sustainability Committee. So it's auto archived. I just found that it's being discussed at the 4-minute mark. So I'll send the link because it might be helpful to hear that conversation about pros and cons, and staff were able to speak to it. And I believe the infrastructure around what was available or what might be possible. I didn't know on this topic, while we have Stephanie here, not sorry to put you on the spot, but part of the conversation, if I recall it correctly, active transportation, and Stephanie, I don't believe was at that meeting, but was the concept of we need to retrofit some of the bus stops if we wanted to do like a pilot pollinator patch. And I know Adriana brought this concept up at our meeting around, you know, what's happening in other places. I don't know if we need a motion to ask staff to kind of explore an area and what it would take to retrofit it, if it means a budget. But I also didn't know, Stephanie, if you had a comment about when we talk about pollinating spaces, even the dynamics of the public, I think came up at that time about how do we educate the public where we're asking them to sit, and they might have questions about why are we seeing bees or why are we activating a space where residents might not understand the purpose or benefit, and is there an education that needs to go along with that type of change when we're inviting people into a space potentially with bees?
Very good question. I've been looking into this myself. We recently added some information on the Bee City site about, you know, how to behave around wasps and bees, and it does bring question on how to best educate. And I think a lot of it is just doing that, getting out there and getting people to understand that, you know, bees and wasps are different. You know, the first thing to do is not to go crazy and swatting with your hands and getting them agitated and things like that. But people, it's understandable. There's a real reason why people, especially if they're very allergic, could be very apprehensive about anything that could sting. I feel like if it comes to something like what you're talking about, a bus stop rooftop garden, you know, I thinking highlighting the green infrastructure, you know, that is the real part of anything like this, is what it's doing. It's acting like a sponge, collecting water. It's, you know, it's a green space that wouldn't otherwise, well, it was there, but is now being utilized differently. So you're putting that back in. How is it felt, you know, looking at it from that perspective instead of, you know, it's important to focus on pollinators, and we need to put the education out there, but I think we also need to educate people on, you know, green infrastructure and what it looks like and how it can be a part of our everyday life.
And so I didn't know, one, if it's possible this year to get a pollinator rooftop bus stop, and how to proceed with that. I'll send the link around. And my next comment may not at all be aligned to like the intention of getting that done, Adriana, and that being like a really great concept to see and I think showcase some education around. But if that's not possible, would there be any benefit to having kind of a teaching garden or a space that it might not be a bus stop, but it's located where individuals or outdoor education for kids could actually see an elevated area that simulates kind of a rooftop with kind of a rain barrel and a conversation about planting for water saving and looking at green infrastructure and how do you spot that in your neighborhood, but also what are the benefits happening here in this space, and having that as a bit of a pilot for education and conversation.
Well, a previous coworker of mine many years ago, Dale Dobert, did this amazing sedum hanging basket where it was just all made out of sedums, which are a very common plant used in rooftop gardens, and it's native varietals, but it's pollinator friendly, but it's also does really well in a hanging basket. Might be a good way to test that theory, especially if it's you can elevate it, wouldn't take as much water as a lot of, you know, other plants in hanging baskets would, and might be a good focal point in a setup like you're mentioning. And certainly we are looking at areas to add in, you know, learning spaces, especially parks that abut schoolyards, where you know, getting more opportunities for classrooms to get outside and utilize spaces to learn about nature, pollinators, plants, and infrastructure like that. I think it would be excellent way to test grounds in that regard. I'm not sure.
I brought up the bus shelter rooftop. I was more geared towards the rainwater runoff sponge effect more than the pollinator effect. So hopefully it gets that kind of a slant when it's presented, because I know that the bees would freak a lot of people out. They just don't want to I'm sure the city doesn't want to be liable for all those bites, stings and that. But if we could keep the rainwater from running down the gutters in some select areas, that's what I was thinking anyway.
That's awesome. And I'm even seeing like these rain barrels that actually have flowers in the top and are catching water and then becoming the reservoir. So I didn't even know if it's bus stops or if it's even just how do we use rain barrels differently as planters and or as like, are there different ideas we could incorporate and or we would have available resources to us to use as pilots and incorporate them into gardenscapes and parks?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, because I would have some concerns with regards to it, bus stop being a pollinator concept, mostly because of probably the liability that the city might face. First off, if people, you're sort of attracting the bees to that specific area where people are going to be congregating and not really, paying attention to what they're doing or anything like that. And I don't know, my personal feeling is that the pollinators at the bus stops don't really need to be there. It's just
No.
it's just raising an awful lot of potential issues.
Well, I also think, it boils down to education, so that they're not, people that don't do the fluttering around them and whatnot. I that's my thing, is that I think that it boils down to, public education for them, and people will understand more. It's, I think it's a great idea, actually. And, and I know that Audriana had brought forth the rooftop there, which I think looked really cool. Something to definitely try, but if we can maybe combine the two there, maybe a couple educational opportunities, not just the one.
Well, if you want to stay away from flowers, you could go with native grasses as well on the rooftops, right?
Yeah.
That might solve the problem.
So do
Can
we
you
like
repeat that comment, Darcy?
What was that? Sorry?
Sorry, can you repeat your comment? I didn't catch the last
that
part.
that instead of any kind of pollinator type gardens on the rooftops, have native plants and grasses.
Yeah. What about something like, having taught elementary school for 25 years and doing 25 years of yard duty with bee issues and students being allergic to bees, there seems to be a lot more people every year being anaphylactic to bee and wasp stings. And I know a couple of people in particular who, if they got stung, they'd be going to RVH very quickly, even though they have an EpiPen. What about starting something with rooftop gardens on bus stops along the lines of what Darcine has mentioned, where it's very benign kind of grasses, get the public, start the educational component with just an awareness with something that gets the conversation going without the worry about the pollinator issue with bees at this point. Because the average member of the public, when they're going to get the bus, they're in a hurry usually, and they're not really, I don't think, thinking about conservation and all those issues. You know what I mean? They go to a bus stop, they're in a hurry, they want to get going. But if they start to see a gradual release of an increased greenification of public areas, such as bus stop rooftops with grasses, might get the conversation going, and it would be easier to eventually move to a pollinator bus stop. But I'm thinking, what about the roof of City Hall in Barrie? Could that be, is there an area up there, or like on the rotunda, which is very flat? And because the rotunda is right next to the Barrie Farmers Market, that would be a really good place to sort of get the conversation going amongst a group of people who are probably more receptive to, they go down there, they buy honey, they buy plants, they're not in a hurry, they have time to sort of engage in conversations if you're handing out, brochures or whatnot, or even putting up a plaque in front of the City Hall doors that says, our rooftop is now a pollinator garden, blah, blah, blah. We hope to eventually have more of these around the city. I mean, I'm just thinking of that angle too. That might be an option to sort of showcase that initiative.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Oh, the other thing too, though, is when are they moving the market from City Hall?
Well, unless I'm wrong, just going off the top of my head, I think we're looking at 2023, 24 before we get the consultant on board, and then maybe some scoping, and then for the market. So I don't think it's for a couple of years. I think the next term of council, we want to see some movement there, but we know that the building that they're looking at will, I think, require some development. So I think right now they've been actioned to move the market around a little bit. So they're still at City Hall, is my understanding, but we did approve some funding to support pop-ups of the farmers market, I believe, over the next year, to try and look at enhancing vendors and interest and access to what the farmers market has to offer. But I don't think we're going to see relocation, or probably we'll have a more formal deadline in 2023, 2024 as the design comes back around that building space and renovations that would be needed.
Okay, so
Are they still looking at moving it to the bus station?
Mm-hmm.
oh, good, good.
Yeah, there was some good conversation there too around, if you haven't seen it, we can maybe circulate that presentation too, because it gave you kind of the vision and a video of the vision of how to activate that whole space. And the part of the addition of the scope was looking at the possibility of including a commercial kitchen. And really looking at amplifying or kind of having incubator space for individuals to be showcasing food and how to use food, reduce food waste, but also have some creative space for individuals to be perhaps doing some recipes, all the way from just managing some of those pieces that they want to do from a storefront.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good idea.
Yeah, good things to come.
Yeah.
So with regards to the bus stop, then, Henry, you gave us some kind of a link, you said, to the transportation.
I'll send it in an email. It'd be good maybe to listen to that. I don't, I'd have to review it, but I just found it as we started the meeting.
Right,
But it
right.
does talk a bit about the concept, and I think they cover some pros and cons. So I'll give you the timing. It starts, I think it's about the 4-minute mark, and the city staff, I think from transit, were even able to kind of give some quick commentary on it. And then I think I had a follow-up that there might be some places. So some of the bus stops are kind of curved as a roof. So there was recognition that depending on where we chose it, we might need infrastructure or a budget to retrofit a rooftop of a bus stop. So other ideas, depending on the purpose, is it less pollinators and more about water, kind of retention, redirection, green infrastructure? If it's not a bus top rooftop, is there something else that could be used or done to kind of highlight that?
Yeah.
And then I would even say the active transportation has that sustainability mandate too. So that's also a good forum and group to connect in with and see if there's a shared interest and moving something ahead if we want to get it through. If it's bigger and broader than Communities in Bloom.
Right, right. So at this point then, for an action item, we would just basically wait until we see what the transportation committee at this point determines. Like, they might just say no to the whole idea.
They're not deciding. This was last July, so it hasn't
Oh,
it hasn't moved forward. Yeah, just because
That's a
it would
long
take-
meeting. It started 4 minutes ago and it's still going. Wow. No.
So yeah, so it's a dated conversation, but it'll give you at least a sense of where that kind of stopped as maybe a next step at that point in time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we would put that on as an agenda item maybe for the next time around, give it some thought as to if we have a chance to see this. And then put
Yeah.
that on as an agenda item for the next meeting. And everybody can give it some thought as to some of their thoughts. I'm just wondering if it's, if there's any contact we would need to make with the transportation committee to see if they've moved forward at all with any.
We haven't moved, I'm on that committee. We have not moved
Okay.
forward with it. So the
Oh,
link
okay.
is just to give you the background context of where they've started to have the same conversation we're having now. And, but there's no next step. There's nothing that's been actioned or activated.
Okay, so if we came up with some idea, then we would have to approach the transportation committee and say.
Or staff directly.
Staff,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, yeah, sorry, yeah, it's. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd probably have to talk a bit about what would it take to do that? Is the interest for this year for Communities in Bloom, or are we setting the stage for something we want to see? Is there a space that lends to doing that? And what would be the budget we would want to be asking for to do that in?
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe it sits within city operations at this time, but I could be wrong.
right. Okay. Okay, does anybody else have any other comments or concerns on that particular topic? No, okay, if we move on to item 3, it's referred items, and there are none. Item 4 is the report memos to the committee, which there are none. So just before I would adjourn the meeting, the only other little item I just wanted to make sure is this upcoming weekend with regards to the over at the garden. So are we all set now in terms of, yeah, Dorothy, go
I
ahead.
just like, I sort of like a run through of, like, I'm going there first tomorrow I'll try and
Right.
stay the whole 3 hours if I can, but I'll definitely be there at 4.
Right,
So, Anne Marie, are you there as well at that time?
Yeah, I'll be there setting up just beforehand, but I'm there 4 to 7.
Okay, so from what I gathered, there's a table that you want me to stand at?
So it's a Living Green will have their tables out there, so we can kind of migrate by something that's already established. I'm not taking a table specifically for
Okay.
Communities in Bloom, but we can just easily migrate into the dynamics of that space. They're going to be selling native plants, and I think they've got some small tabletops. So I'm taking a tent just from a sheltering to make sure that if I'm not sure what the weather looks like, but that
Yeah.
that's just for them to use. And then I'll be there on site, can answer questions, but I'll also be in the garden planting.
Yeah, okay, so my role there, or anyone else from our committee, our role is to hand out the registration pamphlets and to encourage people to enter a garden.
Yeah, so enter the garden, but also so we can meet when we're there and see how Andy and Living Green has set up the Earth Day event. Individuals have pre-ordered their plants, so they're coming to get their plants, and maybe when people come, we can actually give them a Communities in Bloom postcard and just say, as you're planting, think about registering. It's free. Go here, call if you've got any questions. We've got judges coming this year. We would love for you to be part of the program. So I think it's really just kind of a encouraging residents before they leave with plants that they're going to be putting in the ground to say, hey, well, we've got you. Here's your registration form. Please fill it out. It's free. Be part of Communities in Bloom.
Yeah, they can also enter online, right, if they don't want to do it right there.
Yeah. And I'm not
Yeah.
sure what's on the postcard, but maybe it'll be able to just be an information piece where they don't
Yeah.
have to fill it out and leave it with us. But I'm wondering if it points them to the online form.
It will.
How many people are you expecting tomorrow?
I'm not sure. I'm not running it directly, but I know there'll probably be about 8 or more of us, plus Living Green's volunteers that will be helping people take the plants to the cars. And they also have a table, so it'll be pretty fluid for pickup. But I have no idea at this point in time. So I would say 50 printouts would be
Oh,
great.
50 people, okay, okay, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's going to be a well-populated event then.
Yeah, and it might be spread out between them showing up Friday night and then Saturday.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you're bringing a tent, I should bring a chair, I guess a chair.
I'll have 2 with me anyways. So I've got that covered for you, Dorothy, if
Oh,
you
you want
want.
a chair, okay. Great, okay, looking forward to seeing you
That's
there
awesome.
tomorrow.
That'll be
Yeah.
good.
And then Adriana, you're doing 9 to 11
Yeah, Saturday morning.
Saturday morning. Okay, and then we'll do the 11 to 1.
Okay.
Now I also have, depending on the setup, I've got 2 Communities in Bloom signs from the garden last year. I can bring them tomorrow just as a visual cue. So if other volunteers are there and they're getting questions, they can point people to us around, chat with the ladies about Communities in Bloom, register your garden if you're not sure how to do it.
Great.
Sure. Okay, and just to refresh me, what will be there available in the way of, we're gonna have them signing up for registration as well tomorrow, possibly?
Yeah.
So the forms will be there? Okay.
Yes. So I have the participation forms as well as the postcards, and that should be ready for me to pick up tomorrow. So that's why I'll make sure that they get over to you, or to Dorothy or whatnot for tomorrow. And yeah.
Do you want me to pick them up at the greenhouse?
What time would you be here, do you think?
I'm
I just, sorry, go ahead.
3 o'clock.
Okay. Yeah, that should work. Yeah, as long as by 3 o'clock. If not, then I'll make sure, I can drop them off like later over at the site there if you wish. Just have to wait and see when I get the postcards. I have participation forms, but we're just waiting to get the actual postcards.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't I'll watch my email if that works. I'm not sure how
Sure.
flexible you are, Dorothy, but if it saves you a trip, if you're not intending to go, if it's out of the way, Mona, I can come to you on my way to the garden.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay then. Well, all right, I guess that's everything. We'll adjourn the meeting, but thank you, Stephanie, for doing your presentation. That was really informative, and hopefully we can link everybody together. All these different groups and activities. That would be great.
Thank you, Chair Paul.
Everybody
Thanks,
stay safe,
Stephanie.
and we'll be seeing you.
See you on the weekend.
Yeah.
See you on the
Thank
weekend. I'll
you.
see you tomorrow,
Thanks.
Dorothy.
Okay,
Right.
thanks.
Bye-bye.
Marie. We'll see you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Steph.
Bye.